Hey everyone, daily NBA around the association for March 20th, 2017. Just want to recap the 8 games from Sunday around the association. Looking at the first game of the night that we're going to recap for Sunday, the Dallas Mavericks defeat the Brooklyn Nets 111-104. This was vintage Dirk Nowitzki, 23 points, 9 rebounds. He had much needed help from JJ Barea, who's finally back healthy after a season filled with injuries. He puts in 20 points, 9 of those in the fourth quarter, and just kind of gave them a little bit of a burst at the end of the game to overtake Brooklyn, who has been playing fairly well. Harrison Barnes chipped in 19 points to help the Mavs pull out the win there. And Barnes' 2 layups basically kind of gave them a favorable edge by 6 points with about 27 seconds to go. On Brooklyn side of things, Spencer Dinwiddie filled in, really well for Jeremy Lin, who again is injured. He had 18 points. Brook Lopez, normal scoring output for him with 27 points. And then Quincy Acey and Randy Foye both had 11 off the bench. Next game up, the Philadelphia 76ers come from 13 down in the fourth quarter to beat the Boston Celtics. Shocking win, clutch shots all around. Robert Covington, sealed it with the go-ahead three-pointer late in the fourth quarter. Dario Saric has been fantastic this year. He is lights out lately, basically since January, more or less. And he's the rookie of the year, in my opinion, now that Embiid is officially out for the season and only really played 31 games to begin with. He put in 23 points. The Sixers win 105-99. Nick Stauskas, ended up playing very well in this one. Might be because Michigan played well earlier in the afternoon, kind of gave him a little bit of a spark. Don't know if he knew that going into the game, but it's a storyline worth noting there. And then on Boston's side of things, again, this is a game to where they play to the level of their opponent. And not to take anything away from my favorite team, the 76ers, but this is a team that the Celtics should have beaten pretty easily, especially on a Sunday. They get 27 points, a season high, out of Al Horford, but not having Isaiah Thomas for this one really made a difference. They started Bradley and Smart in the backcourt, and honestly, the Celtics really need these kind of wins if they're going to be a force come playoff time and make the Eastern Conference Finals. Next game up, Phoenix Suns lose to the Detroit Pistons 112-95. The Detroit Pistons really needed this one because you need to take any win that you can while you can get it, so to speak. Not to take anything away from the Phoenix Suns, but they're basically playing for ping pong balls at this point, and they only were able to play 8 players due to either an illness or guys resting for the rest of the season, like Eric Bledsoe, Tyson Chandler, Brandon Knight. And keynote here, Jarrell Eddy was the first player off the bench, and he just signed a 10-day contract out of the NBA Development League. He's a sharp shooter. He ended up starting off kind of shaky. He was short on his first shot, airballed his second one, but then kind of caught a rhythm a little bit later. Finished with 13 points off the bench. And Tyler Ulis has been fantastic. Didn't shoot it well here, but ended up with 17 points, 11 assists to lead the way for Phoenix. And then on Detroit's side, more importantly, because they did get the win, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope finally had a great scoring output, 23 points there. They get good bench production from John Lohr and Aaron Baines, who put up 23 points to go with 17 rebounds for Baines and then 7 rebounds for John Lohr. And then Andre Drummond had 18 and 18, more importantly, as a starter in this one. And just a key note for anybody that is not really up on Detroit, Tobias Harris is now the starting power forward for the rest of the season. just in case anybody was kind of slotting him into the six man of the year role like I was. I kind of had him at the bottom end towards fourth or fifth in that role, but now he's off my list because I think he's going to start too many games, considering he did start some games earlier this year. Next game up, the New Orleans Pelicans get a win against the Minnesota Timberwolves, 123 to 109. The Pelicans put up 75 points in the second half to pull out the win, and DeMarcus Cousins ended up with 15 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. Good stat line for him. And then, of course, Anthony Davis led the way, 28 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, and then Drew Holiday pitched in 21 there. But most importantly, Jordan Crawford, 22 points off the bench. He has been electric in that role, signed for the rest of the season, and he has looked fantastic. He should stick in the NBA for next season for sure. Hopefully the Pelicans re-sign him maybe to a 2-year guaranteed deal or something like that, because he is well worth it in my opinion. On Minnesota's side of things, just quick news real quick for them. They get Omri Caspi from free agency. Basically, everybody knows Caspi was waived by the New Orleans Pelicans because he was assumed to be out for the year with an injury to his hand. That ended up not being true. He comes back now. He will fill the role of Nemanja Bjelica, who was the backup power forward. And he can also, Caspi can play small forward and shooting guard. So he's going to fill a role there. And he, signs for the rest of this season with no team option or anything like that. So he can make some money in free agency, maybe even back with the Timberwolves if they like what they see. But the Timberwolves put up 33 points. They get that from Karl-Anthony Towns. He's been, fantastic, since January. Andrew Wiggins, 25 points. Didn't really do much else. Does not rebound very well, which I'd like to see him improve on his rebounding this season, this offseason. Shabazz Muhammad, 20 points off the bench, and that's about it. For me, the big question mark is going to be what do they do with Chris Dunn since they're out of the playoff run? Do they give him a lot more experience to wrap up the season, kind of, pull off of Ricky Rubio a little bit? Because you know what you have in Rubio. I'd like to see Dunn get some time, split those minutes with Tyus Jones going down the stretch. You can figure out, okay, if Dunn's going to be a keeper next year, or maybe you made a mistake and you try to package him on draft night for someone else. Next up, the Raptors rout the Indiana Pacers 116 to 91. And the Raptors, the key thing here people need to know is Kyle Lowry is still out, and the Raptors looked fantastic in this one. All-around team effort. 22 points leading the way was DeMar DeRozan. Corey Joseph put up 11 and 9 in the game. Jonas Valanciunas, 11 points, 13 rebounds. More so, Jakob Poeltl ended up having 12 points, his career high, to go with 7 rebounds off the bench. So, like I said, all around great effort. On Indiana's side, they stink it up. They get 1 or 2 good games, and then they stink up, 3 to 4 games. And this team just does not gel very well. Monte Ellis is coming off the bench now, hasn't looked great in that role. I thought he would have, and Jeff Teague, good player, very, very good player, but just does not seem like he's fitting well with this team because he needs the ball in his hands. Paul George needs the ball in his hands. Monte Ellis needs the ball in his hands. And then you've got a guy like Al Jefferson off the bench who has to have the ball in his hands. In this one, he plays 2 minutes, doesn't do anything. And so it's just been a nightmare season for Indiana. And because the East is so weak, from 5 to on down 5 to 15, basically, the Pacers look like they may end up making the playoffs, and I don't think they do very much in the playoffs. Paul George had 18 points here. Thaddeus Young, 16 points, and Jeff Teague, 16.7 assists as well. The Portland Trailblazers, fantastic output from them. They end the 5-game road trip here with a win. And, really it all comes down to Damian Lillard. 49 points. They beat the Miami Heat 115-104. And in this one, Lillard shot 14 for 21 from the field, 9 of 12 from three, and they're within a game of the Denver Nuggets for the West A spot. Miami had the chance to get to 500 for the first time this season, but now they drop from 7th all the way to 9th out of the playoffs in the East. And it's going to be tough for Miami because now they're without Dion Waiters, who has a serious ankle injury, and I don't know when he's going to come back. And they got a great output from James Johnson, who put in 24 points. On Portland side, Yusuf Nurkic, 21 and 12. CJ McCollum pitched in 18 points. And then Noah Vonleh finally shows up with 11 points. So it'll be interesting to see if Portland can overtake Denver, and then what happens with Miami for that A seed. Next up, the San Antonio Spurs beat the Sacramento Kings after the Spurs lose 2 games in a row. So they definitely needed to take this one, and they did. On the Kings side of things, Buddy Hield, another good game, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He looked good in this one. Scalabissier, 14 points, 7 rebounds off the bench. And Georgios Papagiannis ends up only putting in 6 points, but he got 10 rebounds in this one. They're going to give him some run going forward, it looks like, as the backup. Hopefully, if things work well, Costa Koufis can end up kind of, going to the won't play very often role, and then they can give Papagiannis and Willie Cauley-Stein, let those guys kind of split the minutes pretty evenly, or maybe a little bit more to Willie Cauley-Stein to end the season, and maybe they'll get Malachi Richardson back for 5 or 6 games. Let's see, kind of what momentum he can build going into the offseason. But for the Spurs, the usual output from them, they get 18 points, 8 rebounds from LaMarcus Aldridge. They get 22 points off the bench from Pau Gasol to go with 9 rebounds. He's been fantastic in that bench role behind Dwayne Dedmon, and Davis Bertans got the start last night, but he didn't do much with it. Only 2 points. Didn't play very much, only 15 minutes. But more so here, the Spurs don't really have to necessarily squeak out all of these wins. They did rally down from 12 down to lead by 28 at one point. But the Kings come back and make it a little bit closer on paper than it actually was. For the Spurs, I think their key thing is let's get healthy going into the last, little less than a month of the season, and let's try to make a good playoff run going forward. Last game of the night, the Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Los Angeles Lakers 125-120. LeBron James, 34 points in this one, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Kyrie Irving, 46 points in this one. Doesn't do much else, doesn't get many assists, only 3 in this game. More so, the Cavaliers got nothing out of the bench. They did get 21 points, 15 rebounds from Kevin Love. And I just still shake my head at them sitting, all their players on Saturday evening. I mean, that was just not a good look for the Cavaliers. On the Lakers side of things, the backcourt of D'Angelo Russell and Jordan Clarkson is going to be the backcourt going forward. Clarkson puts in 19 points to go with 6 assists. And then D'Angelo Russell puts in 40 points, 6 assists. He is now playing shooting guard. Clarkson's going to be the point guard. Ivica Zubac, 10 points and 6 rebounds as well. Really looking forward to seeing his development for the rest of the season. And Brandon Ingram chips in 18 points and 6 rebounds. He's finally coming around. Hopefully he can improve on his numbers next season as he gets a little bit stronger and gets more experience moving forward. But I want to wrap up real quick with a keynote for the Atlanta Hawks, who are in 5th place right now. They're going to be down 2 players that are very vital to their team, and it could potentially cost them a playoff berth. Paul Millsap's going to end up missing the next 2 games with some left knee soreness. And then Kent Bazemore he's going to be out at least 7 to 10 days, if not maybe for the rest of the season. He's got a right knee bone bruise, which is not always good. Could end up, like I said, keeping him out. And if, they're out of, commission for a while, the Hawks have already lost 3 straight. They're only up 2 games on 6th place Indiana, and then 3 games on 7th place Milwaukee, and 3.5 games on Detroit and Miami, who are basically deadlocked for that 8th spot. Detroit's got the edge with the tiebreaker, but Atlanta could falter and end up falling out of the playoffs. That would be a sight to see. I still think Atlanta makes the playoffs. They look better than Indiana and Milwaukee, Detroit. Miami, I think if they didn't have the Waiters injury, they could have climbed all the way up potentially to 5th, which I would have loved to seen, but I don't know that it happens right now with the Waiters injury, but we'll have to see how that goes. But enough from me on recapping the games. Hope you enjoyed this recap, and we'll do this again every day this week. Going forward, this is going to last until the last game of the regular season. And then we're on the Unquestionably Raw NBA podcast. We're actually going to do a little bit of different format for the playoffs. We'll probably do a video portion to go with our audio portion podcast as well. We'll have a multitude of panelists for the playoffs. Try to get some different looks for you. So not just having the audio version with Keith, Matt, and myself. We want to get different perspectives going forward. And then as we dive into the NBA draft time, once May hits, we'll start breaking down each position. Maybe once per week, we'll dive into the top 5 at each position. Once per week, and then we'll dive into some sleepers, and then we'll get closer to the draft. We'll do our mock draft, and then some rumors and stuff as Keith's plugged in there. But after that, it's summer league and all of that good stuff. So we'll figure out a format there. But hope everybody enjoys the daily NBA around the associations that I do. Just wanted to bring something different for everybody. So until tomorrow, thanks for checking this out.